It seems as though this Devin Haney, George Kambosos undisputed fight at lightweight might actually be happening now, but there's been a lot of back and forth between the two camps. Devin Haney having to jump through hoops to try and get Kambosos in the ring. Kambosos apparently looking at a Lomachenko fight, but Lomachenko has apparently now ruled himself out because of the situation in his country. So, yeah, it's at this stage likely, I want to say, that Devin Haney will actually get this opportunity against George Kambosos to become undisputed. Hopefully, they put pen to paper because, as far as I'm aware, it's not yet official. I know there's all these videos going up and interviews being done, but as far as I know, pen to paper hasn't happened yet. So let's hope that it does happen in the coming days. And let me know what you guys think about the fight. Will Devin Haney have enough to beat George Kambosos? Haney hasn't been particularly impressive over his past few fights, although some people think I've been unduly harsh in my criticisms of him. So, for example, against Jorge Linares, he was hurt in that fight late on. He did win at the end of the day, a 12-round UD, but I didn't think he looked particularly great. Yuriorkis Gamboa, who is, a smaller guy who has seen better days. He must be pushing 40 now, Gamboa. Never had a great chin. Devin Haney couldn't really manage to do anything with him. Didn't manage to get him out of there. I don't think he dropped him, did he? Did he even hurt Yuriorkis Gamboa in that fight? Before that, he fought a guy called Alfredo Santiago. That was another 12-round UD. So you can see the pattern here where Haney is going the distance. He's not stopping anybody anymore. The last time he stopped somebody was in 2019 when he fought this guy called Zor Abdullayev. I remember that fight, and he looked impressive in that fight. Prior to that, he fought Antonio Moran. He got a knockout there, huge knockout in that fight. Now, obviously, these are lower-level opponents than some of the guys he's been fighting more recently. In fact, let me just check up on some of these people here. So this Antonio Moran, who he stopped, he's lost a few fights. Where was the Devin Haney loss? Yeah, the 7th round KO to Devin Haney in 2019. Since then, he came back with a split decision draw over 10 for Luis Solis. Got a win there. Manuel Colon. Okay, so he hasn't really done anything since. He lost to an unbeaten guy in his last fight over 10, Arnold Barboza Jr. I'm not sure I know this guy, not sure I've seen him, but that did go the distance, whereas Devin Haney stopped him. And this Abdullayev guy, who was given a terrible beating by Devin Haney, since then he has strung together some wins. Okay. Zlatikanin, I feel like I've seen that guy fight before. Who's Zlatikanin fought? Definitely seen him fight. Roberto Ramirez, Mikey Garcia. I think I might remember him from the Mikey Garcia fight. Anyway, this individual has strung together a few wins. Oh, he beat Jorge Linares. I didn't even realize that. Wow. That was back in February. Okay. So he managed to stop Jorge Linares in the 12th round. And this is a guy who Devin Haney got rid of in 7 rounds back in, where am I looking at? 4 rounds, not even 7. I'm looking at the Moran fight. He got rid of him in 4 rounds back in 2019. So that's the last time that Devin Haney stopped somebody. Since then, it's been 12-round UDs. He just hasn't been getting guys out of there. Now, this has led to accusations of him being feather-fisted. People say he can't punch. And Haney has been affected by that because he's gone in there and tried to sit down on his shots more. And I actually think that has affected his performances in a negative fashion. I think Haney needs to just stick to being slick and being a boxer and stop trying to go in there and hit people with big shots. If a knockout comes, if an opportunity comes, it comes. You see, one of the things about scoring knockouts and knockdowns is if you go looking for them, as trainers will tell you over and over again, they're less likely to come because the opponent can see what you're doing. He can see your intention and therefore he's more careful, right? But when you draw, when you lull your opponent into a full sense of security and you just box and you get him chasing you, that's when the opportunities present themselves to land these big shots. When your boxing is all flowing. And I think Devin Haney is better off doing that rather than letting the fans get to him and letting the criticism get to him and going in there and trying to prove that he can punch. So anyway, still a young guy, only 23 years of age. He's got time on his side. And perhaps, as other people have suggested, the weight is actually affecting Devin Haney at this stage because he is a big guy for 135 and he might be a lot better off at 140. And for me, Devin Haney doesn't look as fast as he used to a few years ago. And that could be the weight too. Sometimes when you are really drained at the weight, it can affect your strength. It can affect your speed. You move up in weight, you get heavier, and you actually get faster. It seems counterintuitive, but it can actually happen because you can be very drained at the lower weight, and it can make you slow when you're particularly drained. Now, I'm not saying that that's definitely the case with Devin Haney, but it's a possibility. So anyway, let's see what happens with this Kambosos fight, whether he can get the fight. And if it does take place, whether it's in Australia or whatever, how do you guys think the fight will go? Are you picking George Kambosos or are you picking Devin Haney? I think that Kambosos was definitely the more impressive recently, beating Lopez. But Haney, I think, has got more in the tank than he's shown in recent fights. But it's just whether he can do his best. It's whether he can produce his best at 135 pounds or whether he's going to need to move up to 140 before we see a better version of Devin Haney. Again, only young at 23 years of age. You can't imagine that he would have peaked by now, although some fighters do. Mike Tyson being a famous example. Mike Tyson peaked at a very young age. Right? Wilfred Benitez peaked at a very young age. So you do get these fighters sometimes that peak very young and go downhill when they're like in their mid-20s. Prince Nassim peaked very young. By the time Prince Nassim was 28, he was finished. Riddick Bowe peaked very young. He was done by the time he was 27, 28. So you do get certain fighters that peak very early and then fade even in their 20s. Will Devin Haney be one of those guys? Remains to be seen. I don't think so, but you never know. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about Haney, Kambosos, how that fight go.